Hey team, Matty231, another video today with the 210 E55. There's always something to do on one of these cars, isn't there? If you own a Benz, let me know when you last did some work on it, because it feels like at the moment I've had a real nice sort of probably 2 or 3 month break. I haven't really worked on anything since the 221 S600, which was about, now as I'm recording this, about 4 or 5 months ago. Time goes pretty fast. So we've finally got some work to do, and we've got a big project coming up on the 211 E55. Fortunately, was driving it the other day. I knew it was bad, but I didn't realize it was this bad. I ended up stripping one of the drive belts while I was driving it. So all of a sudden the steering wheel went really hard because the power steering pump stopped working, the alternator stopped working, the water pump stopped working. So we literally lost the whole drive system, the whole drive belt system. Yeah, I was literally pulling out spaghetti pieces of the belt afterwards. Thankfully, I managed to, on the roadside, I managed to come home and grab a new belt and chuck it on and get it home. So, you know, what would have been a $1,000 tow job / repair shop bill has ended up costing $40 for a new belt. So hence why, team, if you can get into your own DIY on your Mercs or your Beamers or your Audis, whatever you've got, it pays to do so, because in situations like that where I might have had to spend $1,000, I didn't have to. Anyway, there's a big job coming up on that car. I won't talk about it just yet, but that's going to be exciting. Today we've got the 210. Today we are doing the rear main seal. This car is pretty good now. It doesn't leak. We've done the front end. I've put a new AC compressor in it. We've done quite a lot of work to it, which I haven't videoed. I'm sorry. It was just a job that I wanted to get done, and it wasn't a major and it wasn't that exciting. But yeah, apart from the rear main seal, which I'll show you in a sec, we nearly have no leaks on this car. So we're going to do that. We're going to change the conductor plate, the electronic plate inside the transmission, because for some reason it's been leaking fluid over my garage floor for a while now. So we're going to reseal the pan where it's leaking and replace the conductor plate. So we've got the car on the hoist. If we have a close look at underneath here, we've got our new AC compressor just sitting in there, and it's got a little bit of oil still running down. I can see from the front. I forgot that I actually there's still parts of the timing cover that have very slight weeps on them, which I think's where that oil's coming from. Same on the pan here. The pan, obviously the upper pan's pretty good, but I feel like it blows and runs from the front of the engine down the back and then sort of just weeps and sits on some of the bolts here. But then if we look at our main job, the rear main seal, we've got obviously quite a lot of build up here, and I'm probably not expecting to get this perfect, but if we can definitely get it better, I'll be pretty stoked. So in that respect, obviously we've got the starter motor up the front there, which we don't need to actually remove, if I'm not mistaken. All we need to do is undo the bolts for it and just back the transmission back and down out of the way. You could, even looking at it, I was going to say normally you'd have to take the exhaust out, but I feel like we might not even have to take the exhaust out. Like really, we might not have to. We'll look it up on WIS and just see what's needing to be done. In saying that, it's going to make it a little bit harder to get to some of these bolts, so we might have to anyway. It's not hard. We've just got obviously our new hardware on here. So we just need to take that hardware off, and then literally the transmission here, we're going to have to do that anyway. And at the flanges on the exhaust manifolds up there, again, not too hard to reach. Apart from that one there, which is a bit of a bitch. I really don't want to have to drop this sway bar again if I can avoid it. So I'd like to keep that in place, and it's just clear of the system, clear of the bow housing there. So if we fire this up, we'll just have a quick nosy and see what WIS says compared to what we've just looked at. But yeah, maybe we don't have to touch the exhaust. Yeah, who knows? Let's continue. So team, looking at the WIS guide here, I was sort of right. We don't have to remove the gearbox. The exhaust. The only car where you have to remove the exhaust is the 210 with the 119 or 120 engine. not the 113 like we're working on. So the real key things we just need to do are get rid of the remove the oil drain pipe, the filler pipe, which goes up here and then attaches to the back of the engine. So remove that top of the bottom of the car. And then obviously we've got to remove the rear drive shaft here. So we'll do that towards the end. We'll support the base of the engine, remove this whole cross member and undo this. We'll also replace that disc as well, just for the sake of it. We've already done the rear, we just haven't done the front, so we'll replace that flex disc. Yeah, detach the oil cooler lines, drain the oil cooler. It also says to drain the torque converter, but I can't say that. I didn't think the 5Gs had a torque converter drain bolt. But we'll have a look. We'll give it a full flush, so if it needs to be removed, we'll find it and remove it. Yeah, drain the torque converter, and then, yeah, just release all the bolts, drop it out. Before we release the bolts of the housing, though, we'll make sure we detach the flex disc, the drive plate, and the flex plate from each other, because you obviously do not want any sort of weight or tilting from them being connected after the fact of disconnecting the bell housing here. We want to keep all those shafts aligned perfectly and no extra stress on them. So we'll do that before we finally detach everything. But yeah, it's actually not too major. The 211, the E55, my other E55 with the 722.6 with the 113K has a much beefier exhaust system, and therefore required the full exhaust to be removed, transmission out. So that also added like an hour of time on either side, just getting the whole exhaust out. To my liking, it's actually not too much of a pain, this engine, so this transmission. So if you do have a 210, or probably even a 211 as well with a 112 in it, you'll probably find that it's similar. It's it's not actually a major to get it out, even though contrary to what you might expect normally. What would have been nice would have been being able to pull the whole bottom engine oil pan, the upper oil pan off the car. We actually are going to do that in the 211 in that big job I was talking about soon. We're going to pull the whole upper oil pan off, bottom oil pan, full front timing cover off, and rebuild all of that. But yeah, we'll keep the heads on, keep the engine in the car in this instance. So yeah, cool. Okay, so what we're going to do first, team, is we're going to start with removing the the transmission oil filler tube. And while we're here, actually, I might just start pulling the electrical cabling off and stuff. Actually, just before I do that, I'll lower the car down, disconnect the battery, and start by just on top of the engine there, removing a couple of bolts. Apparently, the oil filler tube goes up the back of the engine, and there's a couple of bolts that bolt to the engine. Obviously, we don't want to leave that in situ while we're dropping the gearbox. So we'll start with that. Right, team, so we've taken the negative off the battery. We've taken the little shield off the electrical connector. And what do you know? I swear to God, I already replaced this connector, but maybe I didn't. I actually can't remember. This electrical connector here commonly leaks, and it can cause issues with the electrical system, or with the electrical and signal supply to the gearbox. And this one's a perfect textbook failure here. You can see the whole connector is wet with oil, and also the pins in the middle there cause oil to literally go up the wire here, and then the TCU is in the passenger footwell up in here, and ultimately get oil into it and fry it. So that is not good at all. But regardless, we haven't seen any symptoms or issues, so you could say we've caught it early, hopefully. We'll bag this up just to protect it. We'll bag it up, we'll put a zip tie around it, and then what we're going to do is just leave this in situ for now. We'll drop the gearbox first, reinstall it, and while we're doing the conductor plate, we'll pull that old one out and put a new one in. Right, team, so we've taken the bolt, the oil tube or dipstick tube, there's one of these bolts right at the top here. So you can get your hand right up there with, in my case, it took a few different tools to get the right combo, but it ended up being a half-inch drive Torx socket. A T, what size is that? Sorry, an E14 with a little extension. Whereas before I was using my 3/8 E14, wherever that's gone, over here. And it's just slightly too long, whereas that one's shorter. And I couldn't really get enough leverage, at least with my own strength, on this 3/8 ratchet. So I used my slightly longer and bigger quarter, a half-inch, and that gave me enough leverage to crack it, because they are quite hard to crack. So just be careful, because, you know, like I've slightly minced up the top of this one a little bit. Just be careful you don't get it stuck or threaded. So when I put it back together, I'll probably just put a nicer bolt at the top there, and then that one at the bottom. Cool, that's done. So I'll just check if there's any more bolts up here, and then we're basically going to then pull that out from the top. But before we pull that out, we're going to split the flex disc here. So there's a little cover that you can pull down, little plastic cover, get with my hands after this, and it gives you access to then basically see each little flex disc bolt. And they're only little small bolts, and I think there's 4 of them from memory. So we just slowly rotate the engine using our crank. Oh, bugger. We're gonna have to, team on this car specifically, remove the electric fan and the actual fan blade itself as well, because we're not going to be able to get our crank rotary tool in there. So yeah, we're going to have to bring that down again. Here's our crank bolt tool. What size is it? 30 something? 27, sorry. So we're going to hold that and then rotate the engine clockwise. So always rotate it clockwise, not counterclockwise, clockwise. We'll get access to those bolts. So make sure the car's in neutral. It should have already been in neutral. But yeah, first we're going to bring it down again, take the fan out. Look at this beauty. Easier than I thought. There's literally only a little bottom one we took off right beside the oil pan, and the one I just spoke about. So this bigger E14 Torx bolt here, that's it. And then you can I just used a screwdriver, a flathead, just under here with a hammer, just to chisel this just softly out of the up the pan, out of the casing, and then just weaved itself out, nice and easy. Cool. So that's great. Makes something a little, recovers a bit more time for me, because yeah, I spent probably about 20 minutes just on that bolt before. So that's cool. What we're going to do now is bring the car back down again, and we are going to take the fan out so we can get those flex disc bolts out. So guys, we've removed the fan. Lots of room in there now. Unfortunately, the actual crank bolt on this engine isn't your standard 27mm socket. It's actually a sort of hex bit like this. This one's an H14. It's too small. I think it's about a 16. So to turn this sucker, we need to actually get a different, yeah, it'll be about a 16. So another 2 sizes up from this. It'll fit in the bolt there and turn it. So for now, while I wait, because I'll have to go and buy that bit, we've got the exhaust bracketry out. So you just saw that was connected through these 2 bolts here and attached to either side of the exhaust just to hold it in place. It's not that wobbly though, but it's there anyway. So what we're going to do now is remove the other little connections here. Actually, I don't know, what's that? Weird. So that's some sort of interesting connection there. It could be the locking mechanism. Well, there's no locking mechanism though, no. On the side here is where we've got the shifter itself up there. You can just see probably the little metal clip there holding that in place. We've obviously got the ground wire as well. We'll undo that in a sec. But yeah, we've got that as well. I might have to look up on WIS to see how to get that out. It might be that we just have to, you can see there's a Torx bolt just above it there. We might have to undo that, and we'll probably find it slips out through there, and there'll be a little thing behind it that connects it all. But yeah, so we need to get that out, and yeah, so pretty good progress already. Let's continue. So team, I've got a 1/2 inch breaker bar here, and then I've got to pick this up 16mm Allen socket / hex head 1/4 inch. It's a nice Koken brand, which is a Japanese made one, so it's a bit bigger. It's still actually not the perfect fit. I think it might even be an 18, but it doesn't matter. We're only just putting a bit of light pressure on it to turn the crankshaft clockwise. So we just get it up in here on the crank pulley. It's never easy to do. There we go. And then I can literally just pull it here and start turning it until we see the bolt line up with the hole there. So I'll quickly do this one. Cool, so I've spun it around, guys. You can see here, there's the little bolt right there. And you can see also the dowel where it lines up with the, where it lines up between the flex plate and the flywheel. So basically what we're going to do is just get a socket and just simply remove the bolt. Easy as that. Now what size is it? It's either a 14 or a 15, I think. Maybe a 15. It's actually quite tight. It's actually quite bloody tight in there. We'll get our 14. It's actually really tight. It's tighter than on the 211. No, it's a 13, guys. 13's the size you want. Cool. So I'm just going to get in there and crack it off. Cool. Enough room though to work on. So we're going lefty-loosey. Now you should be careful. You did see me there move the actual flywheel back in the other direction. You don't ideally want the engine going in the opposite direction. Once you do loosen it though, again, it's probably better if anything just to hold this while you do it. Cool. So all I'm going to do now, guys, is get this out and just keep rotating around until we get all of these 4 out. There's 4 in total on this, and then we're all good to go. And to continue to start disassembling. And yeah, we're not too far off. Right, Tim, we've removed all the bolts. So sorry, I was slightly wrong. There's 6 in total. There's 2 pairs in 3 different spots on the flywheel. So like in a triangle arrangement, 2, 4, 6. So we've taken those off. And yeah, we've now detached it. So now we can separate the, that just landed in my head, didn't it? Basically what we can do now is I'm going to take off most of the rest of these bolts here on the case. And then what we'll do is once we've taken those off, we'll then go and set up our lift there under the oil pan. And then we're going to remove our flex disc and our center mount here. I might even do it with my little skinny stand first, just because the other one's quite bulky. Or maybe not. Yeah, I'm not sure actually, because we need to obviously get enough room with this out of the way to undo the flex disc. So then we might actually end up putting this back in place, then swapping over to this setup here with the big jack. So first off, yeah, I'm just going to probably take all of these bolts off apart from maybe these two on each side, so we keep everything together. Continue moving on to the back. Right team, we've got the transmission out. Nice and easy, not too hard. The only thing I did need to do is take the actual flex disc off fully, just because the rear of the gyro shaft would still pinch on the rear of the flange of the transmission output shaft. So yeah, so it's out now, so it's all good. We've got our rear main here, back of the engine, throttle body, the little sort of lip that goes down into the intake. You can see the throttle body on the back there. You can see the EGR valve there. You can see that hose there, I believe, is one of the AC cooling heat feeds, hot water feeds. Yeah, there's our steering rack. Obviously our down pipes, our exhaust manifolds up there on each bank. So yeah, it's quite a nice view, bit different to the 113K. You've got a bit of a different piece up the top here, obviously with a supercharger, but exactly the same flex disc, exactly the same rear main seal cover and everything. So what we're going to do now is just simply undo these bolts. These are one-time use stretch bolts that hold the flex disc in place, and then we'll remove the flex disc with this little metal ring around it that separates as well from it, and then we'll have access to remove the rear main seal itself. Hey team, another day. So we've put this little contraption on here, as you can see. I've literally just got a wrench, put one of the bolts back into the bell housing, and then threaded one of my Torx that's here through one of the holes on the flex disc or the drive plate, and used it to leverage when I undo these bolts here. So I've cracked them all off, and now I can just simply screw them out. So use a breaker bar to do these because they are pretty well torqued, and pull 8 of these bastards out. I've got some brand new ones already. Again, if you're doing this job, try and make sure. They're shorter ones. Oh, I was worried about that. Interesting. Okay. So these are actually shorter bolts on this car. These are the ones I ordered. I did them on my 211 with the rear main seal. You can see there's 2 different versions. I can confirm now, the 113K, the supercharged one, has longer bolts. That's the one out of this car here, shorter bolts. Thankfully, I actually did buy these years ago, so I should have some brand new ones in the shed, in the setup there. But you can see they've got like a bit of a shiny finish to them because they are stretched when they're installed. So you should only use them once. Cool. So I'm going to find out where the hell those are and fish them out so I can start using them. But in the meantime, we'll also remove this disc. Right team, so you just saw we took this rear panel out. You can see how black and gunked up this engine's been. It's pretty bad. This is obviously not new to me. I took off the, what do you call it? I took off the valve covers last year, and you saw this also on the valve train pretty extensively, pretty baked up, carbony looking. And yeah, the main bearings there, the main crank journals are pretty cooked if you look at how black they are. Nothing wrong with them in theory, just a lot of build up on this engine, and also a clear lot of build up on the oil. You can see here on the bell housing as well. So it's definitely leaking a lot of oil. But yeah, you can see all of the silicon seal for the plate that's there, and also the little tiny seals like this one here, all silicon on to hold that cover plate in place. So basically what we need to do is replace, first off, strip and clean all of this, remove all the old gasket surface. And the way I'll do that is just simply using CRC gasket cleaner. And compared to the 211, I've got this tool now, which I bought off AliExpress, which is like a nylon plastic scraper, so it's not going to damage the mating surface, but it makes it way quicker to scrape all that crap off. That's really the only solution I found that works real well so far. Everything else, other tools I've used, just too hard or, yeah, don't do the job. But you can just see the amount of oil that's been tossed around this bell housing here. So what we're going to do is we've got our new, so this is the back of the old one. It's cooked. If you look at the 211 video, my 211 engine's a lot cleaner than this. Like there was none of this sort of thick carbon buildup that this one has. So yeah, someone hasn't serviced this car. But look, it's still running. It's still 280,000 Ks and still runs. It's crazy. Yeah, we've got our new stuff here, a new OEM back plate. You can see it. And our new OEM ring. And basically this ring in here is this piece, and we press it in place once we've remounted this back plate. Other thing we also quickly did is we just took the torque converter out and we drained it. So there's a little drain here. Not all 722.6s have this on the torque converter, if I'm not mistaken, but this one did. So I drained it into here. And when I was draining it, there was no obvious sign of metal particles in the oil. So it shows that it's obviously very dark, but there's no like glaringly obvious metallic particles. So that's a good sign. There's definitely little bits here and there, but it's nothing bad. Like you can get if it was playing up. Cool, so let's just get into cleaning this up and getting things underway. Right team, so before we reinstall a new cover, we've got the old bolts here that aren't too dirty, but what we're going to do is we're going to mix these bolts up with a bit of petrol and just let them sit for the rest of the day before we clean them off and get them ready to reinstall on a new cover. Pretty filthy, we'll do the same. God, this is not a safe way to pour petrol out, but anyway. That's enough. That petrol's quite nice still, it's not too old. So we'll also chuck our other screws in there with it. Sweet. Cool, just chucked a few bolts in there. Guys, we'll just leave that for now. Let that soak for the rest of the day. But yeah, we've got our rear cleaned up here. So you want to make sure on the sealing surface here, on the metal sealing surface, you've basically got every bit of black gasket off. See, even down there it's pretty mint. Before we put everything on, I'll just give everything a one final wipe with the brake cleaner, just to make sure it's all safe. Put the new cover back on. So it's looking pretty clean. You can see up the top there where I rubbed some of the build-up off. I'm not going to bother cleaning it, team. It's, you know, it's what I am curious to know though is if we did use like an engine oil flush, would that actually clean a lot of that off over time, or is it just on there permanently until you know, disassemble and mass clean everything and reassemble it? But yeah, okay, so let's come back to this and get the rear cover installed, which is over here, ready to go. A new cover. And all you need as well, obviously, is some sealant. So we can put new sealant on the rear cover. The problem is, so you want basically this JB Weld black. The problem I'm always concerned about, I'll probably get away with using this one. I always like to buy a brand new packet though, especially on something important like a rear main seal or a timing cover, something that you're not going to be able to easily fix. Whereas the breathers on the valve covers on the top of the engine, you know, this is probably about a year ago since I used this. You know, I could probably use this on that because worst case, hey, it takes 20 minutes to get the covers off. If I use that on this and it's, you know, in any way faulty and it starts leaking, I've literally got to pull the whole thing out again. So I'm probably just going to go and buy a new JB Weld and we'll have a fresh packet ready to use. Cool. Right, team, don't know what I'm doing here, but we've basically got the output shaft to the drive shaft, and we've got a 30mm deep socket that I've bought here. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a proper impact one, but I've read reviews for this one specifically and they seem to work. So we're going to give that a go. But before we do, there's a little tiny lip on it. You can probably see here. So we're just going to, it's quite tight. There's not much room to get a flat head in there. So I'm just going to use a very small flat head and just try and bring it out so that I can actually undo it properly, because at the moment we're not going to be able to get that off. So we need to pull this little divot out and then give it a crack from there. So let's have a go. I've had a pretty bad day today, so I'm sort of rushing a little bit more than I'd like to, but and I sort of have less tolerance today for certain things. Hopefully this works. We'll give it a go. Look at that. Highlight of my day. There you go. Nice and easy. That's where, guys, these come in really handy, these 1/2" impact wrenches. But yeah, you can see the little lip there as to where we just nicked it out. I did put a little bit of PV Blast on it, you could say, and Bob's your uncle. Now apparently this should just slide straight off. I don't think it matters exactly what teeth the thing's aligned to. I don't think there's any balancing involved, but we'll just roughly line it up there and it should just slide out. Oh yeah, just like that, easy. There you go. Cool, so there's the rear flange. Yeah, you've got to, so you've just got to be mindful, Tim, of the wear that you can get on these here. So if we just wipe off the gunk, we'll give it a good clean up. I'm going to check to see also what sort of drilling, sorry, not drilling, but what sort of lubrication is required. I imagine the seal, just like the rear main seal, just like most seals, it'll sit in here dry, so we can see the old seal here looking really really well aged. It'll go in there, but you can see over the years that's where the seal was ran on, and it's obviously nice and smooth. you want to make sure that it's obviously hasn't deteriorated over a period of time. Yeah, this sucker's done a few probably billion rotations in its lifetime. Yeah, so there's a little bit of probably not good to use anything other than maybe your fingernail or something very soft to clean this. Even here, team, see? I don't know if that's just corrosion and we can't get past that, but see if we can clean it off, because this is obviously what's running around the circuit here on the seal. So over time, that's going to slowly eat away again at the seal and cause a leak. Yeah, so let's pull this off. What I'm probably going to do is just the old screw in there and pry it out. So I'll show you what that looks like in a sec, because I don't really think there's any other way to sort of pull that out without making a mess. So yeah, we'll do the old screw method. Right, I thought that was going to be hard, but it wasn't. It was easy. So here's the old seal team. You'll just see I tried a few different screws you might have seen on the video, and I ended up using a sheet metal screw, just because it was hard to get through this, because this is all metal, and also the inner ring's metal as well, for what I can tell. The only soft part's the actual inside surface or race where the shaft spins. So yeah, and then because the screw's so small, I've just put some bigger washers on it, and then I've used a cheap AliExpress dent puller for a car to just pull this out. You could, in reality, you could probably use what else could you use? There's probably other tools you could use to do the same thing without having to get too fancy, but this has worked well. Right, and we're going to do the exact same on the front seal too. So when we get to the front seal team on here, this sucker here, I'm probably just going to put something to protect this shaft here, just because there's less room. We'll just do the exact same thing and chuck it on there. So that wasn't actually too bad. So you can see the retainer in there. You can see the retaining clip that holds that ball bearing in place. It's quite cool to see. The gearbox is currently in park, I believe. Yeah, I'm not going to touch it. I think that might be park. Yeah, quite hard to turn it. Anyway, is that a new seal I put? Yeah, it is a new seal I put in there. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to put our new seal in, but first we're just going to give everything a bit of a clean up. And then we'll, get that new seal just gently tapped in. I'm picking it will go in pretty easily, because this one came out pretty easily as well, considering it's been in there for literally 26 years. So we've got a nice brand new one. Let's get into it. I'm just going to put a mask on because I don't want to get all the fumes here from the brake cleaner. You know what we're going to do? We're actually going to do this one first. We'll get both seals out and then we'll put them back in again. So let's try the same theory on this front. Gently screw that one out. Goodbye the old seal, there's a new one. I'll chuck at the end of the day, yeah, ideally, guys, you want to probably keep as much sort of fiber and stuff out of this area, because you've actually got a direct link. Yeah, too bad. Hey, it's an old car. I'm not too fast, but probably shouldn't use a microfiber because it obviously can have stuff come off it. You want like a lint-free cloth, but that's fine. So we'll just gently screw this one in here. I'll use the shaft to give me a bit of leverage. Cool. There we go. That's enough. Do the same thing again. If anything, I'd put one on the top and one on the bottom, but that's fine. Cool. The problem is here is this is quite close to the shaft, so I might not be able to get the bloody thing. Oh, there we go. Yep. Cool. So just give it a few taps. Oh, easy as. There we go. Done. That was. I'm really happy about that. I was thinking this job might be a bitch, but it's actually been really easy. Cool. So I'll just keep that over there for now. Same thing. This seal's a bit smaller. It's a bit thinner. I'm going to see if I can read out when I've got the time if there's a date stamp on this as to how old it is. There's the part number on it, but I can't see any date stamp. I could tell how old the what was it? The flex disc was on the drive shaft because it had made in West Germany on it. So you know how old it is when it says made in West Germany. Yeah, I was like, is this the original or not? How do I tell? There's no date stamp on it. Oh yeah, it's made in West Germany. What was that, the 90s or something? The early 90s? I guess they never updated their manufacturing tooling before the late 90s after the Berlin Wall had fallen. But yeah, cool. So I'm going to stop talking now, and we're going to clean this area up and put these seals back in. We'll probably start with the front seal first. Right, team, so we've got our new shaft, our new seal, sorry. This seal here is for the front shaft. Actually, no, it's not. Apologies, this is the front shaft. This one's not a genuine. This one's an aftermarket Feby-Bilstein OEM. Sorry, I shouldn't say aftermarket. It's still OEM. You can see the shaft here. So nice and simple. Just make sure, obviously, we don't want to touch the inside lip here. We want to leave it. So any pushing or pressing of it in, we're going to do on the outer edge on the front here. So I'm just going to get a slightly bigger one of these. Now, you don't have to use this. It's just, thankfully just bought one of these kits for pressing on bushings and stuff on suspension. I'm just going to get a slightly bigger one of those and use that to gently tap it in with a mallet into the mating surface. But you can use, again, I used to use like big sockets, like big 30 or 40 mil sockets, or you could literally probably just carefully put it in place, and you might even be able to just gently tap it in with like the butt of a screwdriver or something, or something that's a little bit blunt, has a bit of a blunt end on it, and you just gently tap it in there. So bear with me, I'll grab. This is going to be too big, isn't it? No, it's going to be okay. Yeah. Cool, so I'll just reposition it in its little spot there. It's actually going to be a bit of a bastard because, as you can see, the shaft's right there, and I don't really want to be hitting on this or scratching this, obviously, which I just about did then, so that's not good. I'm going to keep a bit of this here over it, just so when I slide the cup off, I'm not actually potentially risking damaging the shaft. I might need to figure this out, actually, how to do this better. But you get the idea, right? So let's get that sorted. Excellent. So what you want to do is once you've installed it, you want to just run your finger over it without any gloves on. I guess it's the improper way to measure, but basically you want to measure. You can probably just see here on the camera, you can just see there's a little lip right at the top of my fingertip there that goes around the whole edge. So you should feel that the seal's just recessed slightly back from the front of the shaft there, and that means that you've got it installed properly in base. So that's good. Now from the start, I thought about it. From the start, I should have had that there covered up like that. Cool. So that's all good now. Move on to the back again. I do want to clean it. We'll put the seal back in now, and I'll clean this tomorrow, or sorry, in the morning, in a few minutes, I guess, on video. But I just want to first, clean up the end of this here, and sorry, the zoom in team. Just clean up the inside here, put our new shaft in, clean this up here. Let's put, to be honest, I doubt there's an issue. I doubt there's an issue at all as to what way the output shaft and the flange go on. But we'll just have that face up like that. And we'll just start cleaning up just around the inner race there, getting any gunk out, so that we can put our new seal in and have it just fit nice and perfectly. Cool. Tim, I'm pretty stoked with that. It was literally like, 35 minutes? And we've got the new seal installed on the front and the back. I just need to torque this down a bit, and then we just need to get a flat head and whack that part in there so it locks it in place so the collar doesn't fly off. Yeah, we've got a new seal in the front there, and we're good to go. What I'll probably do, unfortunately, guys, this bloody shifter seal here leaks, from what I can tell. I don't know. I don't think it leaks badly, but you need a special tool, from what I can tell, to get. Can't really see it, but you need a special tool to basically get in behind that, which I don't have, and I'm not really interested in buying. But yeah, what I'm going to do is basically clean this all up tomorrow. Yeah, so you've got a nice leak-free thing there. We're going to clean this up with brake cleaner, give the whole base of the box a clean under the bell housing here, get all that cleaned up, and then we're good to go in terms of putting the box back in place. Just before we do that though, obviously, we're going to put our rear main seal on, which is good to go, and we're going to get some silicone to glue that down, or to seal that down. Cool, let's continue. Right team, next morning, chucking, getting their 600 out, and we're just going to go and pick up some JB Weld Ultimate Black RTV for the rear seal, and go grab that quickly and let's do the rear main.
Waiting for connection.
Cool. Back to the shed we go. Right team, so we'll chuck the got our JB Weld here ready to go. We've got our fuel contaminated, fuel cleaned bolts. We'll just give them a good wipe as we pull them out. But I'm just going to drain the fuel into here. You can see how dirty the fuel is now. So I'll take all our bell housing bolts that connect the gearbox to the engine, and we'll just pull those out first. Sometimes I like to use my multi-tool just to put a bit of cleaner, a bit of what do you call it? A bit of metal polish on these bolts to clean them up and put them back in. But they'll be fine, I think, as they are. We'll see how we go. Hopefully you can see the screen, team. So we've got the diagram for the rear main seal in WIS. So we've got the seal here, our new one. Got the dowels, got the torque, the screws. So we've obviously got two long screws at the bottom, which are these ones. Which are these ones down the bottom. And then we've got, I think, what have we got there? We've got 11 main screws. So remove the rear end cover, which we've done. We've cleaned the surfaces. We've installed new crankshaft radial sealing ring. We haven't done that yet. Obviously, we'll do that once it's installed in place. And yeah, but first off, just so you know, the pre-tapped screws, which are these ones, the ones we've got already, with the sort of soft end on the top of them, they're the pre-tapped screws, so they need to be torqued down to 10 Newton meters. When we install them. Sorry, excuse me. No, sorry, yeah, 10. Yeah, sorry. 10 Newton meters. I was looking up here, you've got to be careful when you look at this. I was looking at engine 112, which is the V6. We're looking at engine 113, and we're engine 980 in this car, so we're 10 Newton meters, as I said. And yeah, no, that's all good. So we'll install those. The crankshaft radial sealing ring must be only removed once the end cover has been removed. Yeah, well, that's fine. We're replacing the whole cover, so it doesn't matter. Install the crankshaft. So basically, we've got a special tool here already, team, that we're going to use to install the new sealing ring. Unfortunately, I tried it without the tool on the W210 and I could not get it installed using like a big piece of wood and stuff. If you've got the right size, like metal thing to go on top where you can whack the seal into the new cover, then go ahead. But I didn't, and I butchered it. So I've ended up buying the tool off AliExpress or eBay, I think, and I've used it on my V12 M275 and my 211. And now it's going to be used on the 210. So I'm getting my money's worth out of it. It was only $100 and something. But yeah, cool. So I hope you can see this on the screen here. So if you need this exact same WIS guide, you can see it here and follow that. Cool. So, and then I'm also just going to finally check on the installation of the transmission seal. Remove, install oil pump radial shaft sealing ring. Is that the one we're talking about here? It is. That's the one we just installed a few minutes ago or last night. Oh, no, it's not. Wait, is that a special tool? Damn. Okay, that's interesting. Coat radial shaft seal ring, number 1. which is that ring, between lips and multi-purpose paste. Multi-purpose paste. Okay, well I'm going to have a quick look at that. A0009898051 multi-purpose paste. It looks like it wants us to put some paste on that inner ring, which is weird because normally you sort of have them dry, but that's fine. It's okay. Well, that was good. Glad we looked at that. Unfortunately, there's a special tool here to install that seal. That'll have a very specific tolerance on where that seal, how far it goes in. But you know, we're DIYers here. I've installed quite a few seals in the past and they've always worked fine. Just make sure you take your glove off and use your old finger as a gauge. Make sure you feel no sort of differences between the seating of that seal, because even a slight kink off the correct placement will cause that seal to prematurely wear or let oil through. But yeah, she'll be right. I'm going to say it as a Kiwi here. She'll be right. Our rear seal. Let's just check out the installation of the torque converter as well quickly, because I've pulled that out and I've emptied the fluid out of it. I just want to make sure. Detach, drain screw from torque, and drain fluid. Okay, we've done that. We've drained the fluid. If it contains metal shavings, mine doesn't, thank God, even though it's done nearly 300,000 Ks. Remove shield. Don't worry about that. Detach control cables from blah, blah, blah. Remove exhaust, propeller shaft, torque. Remove torque converter using grab handles, special tool. We don't need that. We don't need special tools. Install in reverse order. Check oil. To me, it seems like we don't need to refill it through the torque converter. Like I would have thought, do we need to fill it up again through the torque converter housing, or do we just chuck it back in and it does it itself? It looks like it might do it itself. We just go through the standard. We just go through the standard process of filling it through the gearbox directly, which makes sense, because if you think about it, if we were draining the torque converter inside the engine, with the transmission in the car, it would be very hard, if not impossible, to refill the torque converter from the bottom of the engine. So I guess it's built to be filled up via the gearbox, and then it quickly throws fluid back into the torque converter as it starts. So we should be all good. I might just do a quick final check and I'll let you know otherwise, but I think we're fine. So we don't need to touch the torque converter. We just install it back in and Bob's your uncle. And finally, the radial shaft. Remove its oil pump radial shaft seal. Is there an output shaft seal? Output. Rear engine output. Shaft. Seal. Radial. Nope. Transmission oil filter, oil cooling, clutch assembly, gear assembly, housing, body cover, torque converter. There's not really much information on it. There's literally no information on it, even as to what the torque is for the bolts. Tightening torques, automatic transmission. Let's see what we can find in here, team. Transmission oil pan, electro-hydraulic torque converter, front cover, shift valve. Oil pump. Housing. Right, team. So I found the torque converter. With the collar nut output flange to output shaft. So I believe that is the collar nut, obviously the one we showed you on the back, needs to be torqued to 200 Newton meters So that's going to be fun. We're going to have to do that without the transmission moving somehow. So I'm going to have to try and like hold the rear flange in place using like a long pole touching the ground or something, and then I'm going to apply to it and get that installed. Torqued on. I thought it might have just been light, you know, like maybe 80 Newton meters, and by smacking that in there, you would have been able to get it in fine, but clearly it's a lot more than that. I have to figure that out. It's going to be fun. Let's get into it. Right, team, we just talked this off camera. Sorry, it's a bit of a rush. But we talked at 200 Newton meters, and the way I did that was keeping this gearbox here using just a simple strop, as we call them in New Zealand. I think it's the same elsewhere. So I just strop this sucker onto the stand here, because before I literally was just having the gearbox balancing on a piece of wood with a Velcro strap, which is obviously not going to work. So you got to be careful the transmission doesn't tip off the stand. So literally anchoring it into this whole assembly here helps with that. So I'll just let the pressure off it. There we go. And for now, anyway, we'll just keep it. Yeah, just keep it like that. Not too tight, but just enough to keep it on there until we actually put it back in the car. And then I'll remove this. Yeah, and then I'll remove this. But for now, we'll just leave it there. And we'll take it off when we lift it, because obviously we're not going to be able to raise it now because we've anchored it to the base. I'm just going to get a nice, decent screwdriver and smack that lip in. Where is it? There it is there. I've put the car into park, I believe. So if now that's a problem. Can I take it out of park? No. How do I get it out of park? It could be something to do with this, maybe. Oh yeah, let's try that. Oh, there you go. So you guys, I still don't know some of the stuff, but obviously that's what that's for. Interesting. So that's obviously your sort of park lock. Anyway, I'll bring it back around here gently. And then, yeah, knock that in. Right, team, putting the seal in. Quick checklist. Firstly, on your new cover, just clean the sealing surface quickly. I used a bit of methylated spirits, but you could also use brake cleaner or probably degreaser as well. Just give it a quick clean from any dust that was sitting on there from the factory. And then make sure you do the same with the seal there. Just clean that area fully up, right? Then get your torque wrench ready with 10 Newton meters set on it for our bolts. Make sure your bolts are there. Make sure you've also got a E10 with just a extension there, so we can once we insert this and press it on, we can hand tighten the cover bolts in place right while we're doing it. So it's just nice and straightforward before we torque everything down. Okay, cool. So we'll bring the cover over here. I've put the sealant in a bit of warm water just to slightly loosen it up, because it is quite cold here as well at the moment in the winter. Probably not too much, so you don't want it sort of running out or anything. You want it to still be a nice 2mm bead around the whole thing. Now, for some reason, I've lost the section I was just in, which is annoying. But if we go back to here, end cover, I've read. Just to clarify, guys, when we install it, free oil grease, guarantee proper function, install radial crankshaft seal, pay attention to fitting sleeves when pressing on the end cover, Loctite sealant. So if we click on here, it shows us the graphic to follow when we're applying it, right? So that's our sealing surface right there, team. You need to follow it when you're doing it on your one. So that's where we apply the sealant. And then we also apply a seal. When it comes down here, it also crosses the bottom here. And it will cross it, if I'm not mistaken, on the inside above those little lips there. If I'm not mistaken, is that right? See, it doesn't actually sort of tell you, to be honest, which is annoying. But this is obviously going to facing into the engine, so I imagine we'd want the sealant inside the bolt holes around them up this way. So when it fits in, it covers over it. Yeah, you can see where it sort of sits around there. To be honest, for the sake of it, I'm probably just going to run a bead around the front as well, just to be extra safe. But generally, we've got about 10 or 15 minutes to do this, so we're just going to jump into it. Oh, there you go. Yeah, 10 minutes. And there's no specific bolt patterns, don't worry about it. Just get your seal on and get the sucker in, and just be careful when you install it that you don't sort of slip and offset it, otherwise you're going to mess the whole job up. Cool, so I'll put it on time lapse team, we'll just jump into it. Right team, everything's installed and torqued down nicely. We're probably about 10-12 minutes maybe. But yeah, you know, ideally you see the silicon just coming out around the edges there, which is good. If you're a real pro, you can do it so that there's just a very thin bead evenly around the whole lot. I've done pretty good, I think. Done pretty good, maybe a little bit excessive down here, you can see quite a bit, and I've just wiped off a bit along here as well, which isn't actually a good idea. Better just to let it dry and do it then. Just looking at that, was there a dowel pin that we didn't pull out and install properly? Ah, shit. That's supposed to be... it doesn't matter. Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. We've lined it up pretty good. And saying that... yeah, and saying that, team, we should be alright. But the dowel pins are actually are sort of important because it controls the clearance where that seal goes. So I might just see if I can pull it out quickly and just tap it back in gently. Hopefully it goes in, because if it doesn't, I know I'm slightly out of alignment. But yeah, let me try that quickly off camera. Right, team, all sussed. I just quickly pulled out using a bit of penetrating oil, and I just shoved carefully this tool here, see the little sticky tool, into the hole where that dowel was, gave it a little tap with a hammer, got it out, and then tapped it into here. And I just used like a flat blunt tool like this here just to tap it in. It wouldn't go in, so it was clearly misaligned slightly. So don't forget that. This is the first time I've forgotten that. Don't forget those dowels, guys. And it does actually show you on WIS as well. I remember when we were looking at it before, but I didn't pay proper attention. So all I did is just loosened off, just take the torque off them, and then get a small hammer and a tool like this. And I could tell, thankfully, just that it was slightly too high, and that's why it wasn't going in. So I just gave it a quick couple of little taps, just enough to move it, probably a 1/4 of a millimeter, and then gave it a tap again, and it went straight in. Done. Retorqued it quickly. Good. We're probably 15-16 minutes in, so not a major. Again, if it was a massive amount, obviously, you'd probably want to remove everything and reseal it all. But because we're talking such a fine tolerance of change, it's not going to be. But you can even see here, actually, more of the sealants come through when we've resealed it. But it's fine. I'll clean this up once it's sealed. So I'm going to leave it for 24 hours till tomorrow. Then I'm going to install a new seal in place once that's all sort of set properly, because for now I just want to let it dry and seal properly. But yeah, thanks team, we'll come back in the morning. Right team, so we're a few days later. Our seal's all nice and clean and in place. So what we need to do now is basically secure the new seal in place. using this special tool we've got. So I'll just go and pull it out. But basically we're going to press on our new timing seal, our new rear crankshaft main seal. This one here. We're going to press this onto the pulley in situ. Cool, so here's our new seal tank. And here is the barcode or the product code, Mr. Car Tool, where I bought this from AliExpress. I don't like buying cheap Chinese products normally, but when you're talking about special tools, they're like literally $800, $700. It's just not worth it. Whereas this worked fine after I did some modifications. This was pretty poorly manufactured. I just had to drill this out a bit, as you can see, to get it to fit over the cover there, I think. From memory, I think we set that on there. I actually can't even remember how to get this going. And then we basically put this on top, and this presses, as you can see, it lines up perfectly. It presses the seal in over the top of the into the new cover. So what we're going to do first, basically get this new seal here ready to go in situ, and then I'll show you how I've set it up once I've got the camera going. Right, Tim, so we've got the seal installer in place. So yeah, it's literally just pushing the seal onto that inner part I just showed you, mounting that onto the output of the crank flange with two little bolts that are behind this, and then we've put this cup over the top, and you can see it lines up perfectly. And then this big sucker here, we just slowly crank it, and it's going to move that seal ever closer. And then we're just slowly tightening it while it presses it into place. Just take your time, don't rush it, don't use any tools or anything, any electric tools to do it up. Just take your time, do it up by hand. I just need to find my 1/2-inch drive. Oh, there it is, down on the floor there. And then we'll tighten it up, and she's all installed and good to go. Hey team, sorry I forgot to record. So we've put the seal in. Yeah, sorry, inconveniently I've totally missed the part where you saw the seal. I do have another video with my 211 doing this exact same job, where I get actually a better view, to be honest, of me putting the seal in. But basically, yeah, we tightened it up, put that seal in, drove it in. Then we basically chuck this plate back on, this drive plate, chuck this little sort of spacer in between. Then we put these bolts in. So make sure you use brand new bolts for a start. And then secondly, you need to firstly torque them down to 45 Newton meters in this sort of pattern. And then you want to do a second stage, turn them all 45 degrees. So I've used a little paint pen, and I basically marked the 12 o'clock position on every bolt. And then I did the same pattern again, and I went around and I turned them 90 degrees. You can see they're all now facing roughly about 90 degrees. So that's all in place. I just did a bit of a DIY cheapy, what do you call it? DIY cheapy holding tool. No fancy Mercedes tools here. Just the basics. And now our plate's back in situ, good to go. So we're ready now, if anything, to put the gearbox back in, which we're going to do as soon as we clean this up. So we're just going to use a can of brake cleaner. Now make sure, guys, you cover that up. I forgot about that. Make sure you, before you get into doing that cleanup, make sure you put on a face mask if you're using brake cleaner. Put on a face mask, put your gloves on, put your PPE on. It's pretty nasty stuff, and we're just going to go around and clean it up. Right team, so we've got the gearbox back into the car. So you saw me looking at just then. Basically, it's a bit of fine art. It took me actually quite a while to get this lined up. But you basically want to have your torque converter seated properly for a start. Then you want to basically get this as high as you can so you can line it up and basically push it onto the dowels. There's 2 dowels on each side of the case. So you want to make sure they line up perfectly, and you can just sort of come behind here and sort of slot it on. And then you want to get your Torx bolts back into place and just sort of gently swap between sides, tightening them up. But it should sort of clip together real nicely and you shouldn't have any issues. Before you do it, make sure your drive plate and your torque converter both are aligned closely as they can, so that they can both clip together. Because if you have it not lined up properly, it's not going to sit in, because there's little grooves on the torque converter, and the little knob on the end of the torque converter slots in between the 8 bolts we put on the drive plate with the little ring. So yeah, get that all in place, tighten these up. I've just lightly done up the oil lines here. What else have I done? And now I've just moved on to doing the actual drive plate connection. So you can probably see in there, I've got that first bolt there. I've gone around and I've done a full turn of the crank clockwise, and basically I've gone through and put the first 3 lots of these screws in on the drive plate. So these connect the drive plate to the torque converter. So there's 6 in total. You don't need new ones. They're 13mm bolts. And basically I'm just chucking those in, zip with this, and away you go. So what I'm going to do now is I'll just hand tightly put these in. I'm now going to put, this car's quite tight, the 210's quite a tight space here compared to the 211 and the 221. Same gearbox, but just slightly tighter. So yeah, now I'm just putting this one in here and just finger tightening it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my torque wrench. While we're doing that, I'll tell you right now, I'm going to get my torque wrench and torque these down. You want to make sure you torque them down, because if you don't, God knows what could happen, but it won't be good if they come out. I don't think they're that tight from memory. I think they might be like 20 to 30 Newton meters or something. But we'll be able to confirm that right now. Transmission. I think it's this document here. Remove and install transmission. Flexible coupling to prop shaft, 60 Newton meters. So your Guibo, actually, forgot to mention, sorry team, off camera, I did put the flex disc back in here. Put that in, or the Guibo as they call it. And basically, again, get that torch. Again, we're putting in the old, I've just put the old one in because it's actually fine. There's nothing really wrong with it. Put the disc in, and you'll see on the edge where you don't have a flange, so like this piece here, you'd go bolt and then washer. But on the flange itself, you can just direct mount the nut with no bolt. Washer. So washer nut, washer, washer screw. Yep, and work your way around and tighten that to 60 Newton meters, and away you go. We'll do the same on the bottom here as well. And tighten them up. What's that torque? Straight threaded connection, 42 Newton meters. I believe that's what we have. The angled threaded connection, I think, is the random one that we don't have on this car, because those will be then stretch bolts and we don't stretch them. Oil drain bolt to torque converter, 10 Newton meters. I've done that up already, that's fine. So yeah, bolt torque converter to drive plate, 42 Newton meters. So we'll do that up on the big 1/2 inch torque wrench. And saying that, I actually don't know if I'll fit it up in there. Yeah, that's going to be a bit of a pain. But yeah, it's the straight threaded bolts. So yeah, these are the ones here. They're fine. Cool. Let's get that done. Team, so you see we've got now the rear flex disc back in. Nice and clean. Cleaned the bracket itself as well. Not spotless, but it's got all the black oil off it. So it's better than it was. And we've put the air, so I can pretty much guarantee that this component here, is a air driven or vacuum pump driven lock for the shifter to stop you from shifting into gear. Out of park, sorry. So it uses air from the vacuum pump to basically push in I guess like a little valve that then releases the shifter so you can click it into drive or reverse or whatever, which is quite cool. Whereas most cars, that's all electronic. And obviously all modern Mercedes, definitely. But yeah, what we're going to do now is basically get this shifter connected back up. And you'll see I've stuffed up. I've put the cross member here back in before I've actually hooked this up, which I don't normally do. So I'm just going to detach it from the actual shifter itself and then slide it back through there. And you can't even see it. It's a bloody tight space to work in. But connect it back to the shifter. I think it's just up in there. You can probably just see the base of it. So we'll we'll stuff it through there. And then we'll, using a new pin or a new retaining clip, put that in so it holds the shift rod in place and it doesn't pop out and fall out when we're driving and then we lose control of the gearbox. This is what I was looking for, team. So the little transmission locking sort of pin or bracket. So basically you slide it up onto the knob. See, there's a little groove in it there. So this slides in this way over the edge and it locks in place and it stops it from popping out. This is don't know what brand it is. I think it's a genuine one, but it still doesn't have the star on it. And then obviously on there is where it goes through the actual shifter system, shifter lever, I guess, on the gearbox and controls your drive, park, reverse. Cool, so I'll get that put in now. Right, team, let's shift the back in. So the rod's up here, nice and stuck in place. The new pin, you probably can't see it. The new pin's on there as well. Keep losing my torch. Please cut this piece of the video because I'm just wasting time. Yeah, see the pin on there. You can see the green gasket or green rubber seal in the middle. If your transmission team's ever the shifter's ever very wobbly or it's metallic-y when you move it, it's probably that bushing there. So replace that bushing. And then at the front here, same thing, same metal, where is it? Zoom in. Yeah, same metal clip at the end. And there's a little black bushing on the inside of that one, so it's slightly different. Now what we're going to do is, yeah, as I say, we'll put, we're actually pretty much done apart from our oil dipstick, which we need to get from underneath. We're going to do these quickly, which are our exhaust hangers, and we're going to then put our fan back in, sitting up there. Right guys, we've dropped the car down to put the fan back in, And yeah, there's a bit of an oil leak front, and I think I've finally figured out what it is. It's basically the cap you can see there that goes on the front of the engine timing cover there. There's that little hex sort of screw, undo that to read the oil pressure. But the whole cap itself comes off. You can see those two torque screws there. So I'm going to pull that off, belt off, pull that off and reseal it. You can see it's got some old sort of white silicone seal on it. And I'm going to actually fix that. Before I do that, I'm going to actually just lift the car back up, and we're going to replace the transmission oil line. It's nice and simple. It's got a little sort of slot and mounting bracket there, and it uses one of the main transmission bolts here to mount. So we're going to feed it back up and plug it in. And while we're there, we're just going to replace the little O-ring, clean this part here up and replace the O-ring with a new one, which the part number is 022997. Yeah, 2248, I think. Let's find it. You can probably just use, team, if you find one, a universal O-ring. But I generally just try and buy O-rings from the dealer. There's those transmission shifter bushings, the black ones that connect onto the actual shifter itself on the gearbox. Oh, here you go. And here's the green one I was talking about. That's a brand new one. Cool. Here you go, team. Trains oil dipstick O-ring. So that's a new O-ring there. I'm just going to take one of those and we're going to put it onto the new pipe. Right, team, so the dipstick's back in place. This video is terrible for lighting. Gosh. The dipstick's back in place. You can just see it sticking up the top there. And you can see it just sitting in the bottom of the transmission there. Now you'll see here that insulation on this older E55 is unfortunately all coming apart. Not badly, but just in some areas like here where your hands are, roughs it up a little bit. But anyway, we've put the dipstick back in. You probably can't even see it on camera at all, but it basically snakes up the top there and sticks out behind the EGR. And then, yeah, so we've done everything on the bottom. Now we can move to removing the pan, removing the valve body and replacing the valve body with a new conductor plate. Also, still we have to tighten up those oil supply cooler lines. And finally, we also just need to put some new covers on the bottom here. I have the old cover for the front, but before I put it on, I want to clean this up more. It's really dirty still. But I want to put the cover on there. I'm going to go to Pick Apart and see if I can find 2 new plastic covers, because it looks like you can't buy them anymore brand new from the dealer. And yeah, the only other thing to do on the 210 now is, as I say, the conductor plate. And also, oh, that was not a good idea. And also, team, is the conductor plate. Yep, I think it's a new oil filter pan filter. The transmission, I believe this is the new conductor plate in here, and then that's a oil filter for the engine, maybe. Oh no, that's a 9G Tronic filter for our ML350 BlueTech. That's a new drive belt for this because it chewed it up. A new L-ring OEM pan gasket, and finally, just I like to keep a stock of some random parts that break often. AMG filler cap, oil filler cap. I sold one of these the other day. So yeah, we've got a few parts there. We'll get on to putting into the E55 210. Then we're gonna take it down, get this AC line replaced. It's only a year old, team, and it's already leaking. I bought this off FCP Euro. It's a Rain brand, R-E-I-N, and obviously something's kinked there and it's broken it. FCP Euro have a lifetime replacement warranty, but for me to ship this back to the US would be probably like 60 or 70 US dollars, and the part's only worth 50. So I've ended up buying locally in New Zealand here from StarTech a brand new, genuine AC line to go from the dryer to here, but I've got to take it into the air conditioning shop. They have to take the gas out first, then they have to replace the line and then regas it for me. So it's a bit of a pain in the ass. It's already leaked a bit of gas, so that's going to cost money. So yeah, hopefully then, fingers crossed, the AC system's mint and it's done. I've spent nearly 18 months on the AC system on this car, just trying to get it going. And it works, got the new AC compressor in there. Works. When the gas leaks out, it's useless. So yeah, and then we'll get the gas out of this one and get this car ready to get this front end worked on and have some fun with the E55 211. Right, team, so we're back into it. We're going to give the little bow housing here a bit of a clean up quickly before we crack into removing the pan and dropping the rear, the conductor plate out. So there's a bit of a mess up here. It's not going to be perfect. It's just a quick clean up just to get it looking better than it currently does. So you can see there's a lot of build up here from the oil from the rear main seal and the upper pan, which is still going to have a leak, unfortunately. I just don't know where it's coming from. It could even be the oil pan itself. And saying that, if you look at the upper oil pan there, you can see it's a bit weepy too. So yeah, unfortunately that's still going to remain a leak on this car unless I literally remove the whole subframe and get myself enough room. I could probably take the upper pan off, but as you can see here, the upper pan spans all the way back here to right here. So if I undid it, you'd have to essentially tilt the pan over the top of the subframe here and down and out. And as you can see, this is in the way as well, so you wouldn't really be able to get it out, unfortunately. You could probably, no. Maybe that's another job. That's actually what we're going to do on the 113K here, but it's obviously a different pan design, but we're going to remove the full upper oil pan. And yeah, maybe once we've done that, we will come back to this car at another stage and do it on this as well if I still have it. But at the end of the day, it's not a bad oil leak, so I'm not going to worry about it. Cool, let's clean it up. Team, so now that's all cleaned up and dried, we can now get onto the pan. So we're going to drop the pan out. I've already emptied the fluid from before we drop the gearbox out. I'm just going to take the drain plug off again and then slowly start to undo the 6 mounting screws. And generally the mounting screws will be a specific E-Torx. What's this one? Usually like an E10 is about the right size, so about the size here, E10. And we'll just crack those bolts. And yeah, I usually take like 2 back ones off first and then loosen the middles and then loosen the front ones. Obviously make sure they're all loose, but you'll find the pan will tilt backwards and you'll be able to catch any extra fluid as it falls out. So we'll do it that way and take the pan off so we can move on to dropping the rest of it. So we've got the oil filter housing out. I've just wiped it clean, used a bit of brake cleaner and wiped it all clean again, so it's good as gold now. As you can see now, we've got the underneath where the pan was, we've got the valve body, and basically you've got these screws here. You can sort of tell because they've got like a little washer under them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we also have one back here from memory. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's just those, if I'm not mistaken, yeah. So that's there. And that's basically our mount that holds everything in place. And then all the valves and springs are hidden behind these plates that are mounted on the side here. Depending on the condition of the gearbox, you can put shift kits in that help improve the shifting if it's rough. But funnily enough, this car, the 5G Tronic in this car here, with nearly 300,000 Ks, is the smoothest out of my 211 and even my 221. My 221 is smooth, but it just has a funny jerk sometimes when you start off every now and then. So I think it needs possibly just some new valves, springs and stuff added in. But this gearbox is actually smooth as silk. It really has no issues at all. There was a small bit of ferrous material in the pan. Haven't drained it in about 2 years. I've probably done 15, 20,000 Ks on it. So a little bit of, very small bit of build up, but nothing bad. Nothing like I've seen in other cars of mine when I've given them their first transmission service where it's like. So yeah, we're going to undo those bolts, drop this system out here, and then I'm literally going to chuck it. I'm just going to give it a quick clean. Yeah, see, it's filthy. I'm just going to give it a quick clean with some brake cleaner and a clean microfiber, but I'm going to put the unit on this. I'm actually just going to do it on the floor here, I think, team, just because it's easier, and we're just going to unclip and put our new conductor plate on. So I'll talk through it once I've gone and started it. Make sure the area is clean. You can obviously tell the area is not clean in theory, like my floors are oily and stuff. But I've got the valve body on a solid stainless steel cooking dish that I've just cleaned fully, so there's no debris on it. So what we're going to do is we are going to essentially remove these caps here. So they just sort of lift off like that. Nice and gentle. Cool. Again, try and keep those things from touching anything dirty. And then all you've got is these retaining clips here, which again, I'm using my, I learnt from doing the W211, if you can use a gun to take this out. Don't use your hands, because what I did last time was I sheared a bunch of these off using by hand, whereas the shock and the speed from this just cracks them straight off the bottom of the transmission, and you get them all out without breaking anything. So if you can, do that. Otherwise, I've heard someone on YouTube say to drive the car first and try and do this when it's still semi-warm, and they'll come out easier if you need to do them by hand. Cool, so keep your fingers on top of these here. Like that. Pull them out like that. Try and keep them on the plate. And then just slot the little solenoids out. I imagine these are still original, like they've probably never been touched before. I'm just going to inspect the O-rings on them. It would be nice to put some new O-rings on these, to be honest, but I actually don't know where you'd start to find those sorts of things. And I'm picking my little AliExpress O-rings aren't probably a good idea. Another one there, O-rings intact. It's interesting, they've got like a little bit of rust build up on them. And then we'll do this side. There's basically 6 solenoids in total. I think I can already see some damage on the conductor plate as well. I wonder if these are original. Just so you're noting the part numbers off. Yeah, that is not what you want to do. Sorry, the part number 140-277-0398. And there's basically two of those. There's two of those solenoids there. This looks like the original, eh? Doesn't say anywhere. I can see the timestamp. And these smaller solenoids, team, they are 140-227-0535. And these are all original solenoids on this one here, which is interesting. This gearbox has to have been looked after pretty well to have lasted, you know, literally not far off 30 years. 0535 as well. So you got three solenoid types really, 4. It's a different one there, isn't it? This one's 277-0435. So it's slightly different. And this one is 277-0535. So yeah, we've got three of these. They're all the same 0535s. Cool. And now that you've done that, you can literally just unclip gently around the edges the old conductor plate. Cool. And probably just move it to the side for now, team, just so you don't drop any old sort of fluid onto it. And there are little filters on these two here, and just looking at them up close, you can use like a little fine pick tool and pick them out to clean them. But to be honest, these ones look clean as hell, so I'm not going to bother pulling them out. But you could just use a little tool and gently pick them out, clean them with some brake cleaner. Don't dry them with anything that's got lint on it. Obviously we want no contamination, and then you can put them back in. But we've got our new conductor plate here. Just don't drop it, team, like I just dropped it. That was pretty stupid. Yeah, so this conductor plate here is not a genuine Mercedes one, it's an OEM aftermarket version. But yeah, it's Continental brand, so it's still very good quality, still OEM if I'm not mistaken. And you can see here, this where my finger is, team, is literally where the Mercedes logo is on the original one, and you can see it's been like sort of grinded off. So this is literally a genuine part right here. It just doesn't have the Mercedes logo on it. So, you know, some stuff's obviously not original and they are OEM and not the true original, but this one actually right here is the true original part, which is cool. There's nothing else we need to worry about here at the moment. No, just chuck that on gently. Right folks, so we've got that installed again. So a brand new float there. As I said, you can see where they've ground out the Mercedes logo. So this is an original piece. This should slightly just wobble, as you can see there. But if we look at the old one and the float, you can see how clean this is, whereas the other one's so yellow and old. But hey, you know, this conductor plate actually works totally fine. So I am going to clean it up and keep it as a backup. It's given no issues. If anything, I've had the odd time where the solenoids have given me an engine issue, but yeah, that's nothing to worry about. So we'll give this a clean up with some electric cleaner, just to clean the contacts and dry it off without trying to get any contaminants in it. And yeah, and this one here, as you can see, there's the Mercedes logo on this one. Is this the original? I don't know if it's going to tell us on this one. This one's a VDO back in the day when it was VDO. Oh yeah, there's the brand there, team. Ah, interesting. Huh, that's weird. The timestamp on this one is 00, which is 2010. So it's an October 2000 built part. That's interesting. That's very interesting because you'll generally find a part that's from, this car was built in I think July 1998. That's only literally 2 and a bit years later that part was built. Let's say it was installed a year later in 2001. The car was only 3 years old. Has this car had maybe a transmission, either a new transmission put in it at some point? Possibly. No, okay, maybe it has. But then if we look at the bottom here, underside, there's all your clutch packs in there, team. You can probably see just your K2 and I don't know all the names, but there's different clutch packs and gear sets in there. And yeah, obviously there's your oil pump suction through there. It's all very clean under here, which is good. But if we look at, is there any build dates on this? No, not that I can see. Oh, it sucks. It's probably on the external body somewhere. But yeah, you can obviously see whether the gearbox itself matches the same date as that conductor plate there. But anyway, it doesn't. Now, as you can see here, you can just see, team, that O-ring there has come out. So we need to grab that and make sure it is refitted properly before we put this back in, because it's going to pinch on it. So I'm just going to grab that and reseat it. Been saying that it's probably the O-ring off this. No, it's not. Okay, so it must be separate. I was going to say there'd be an O-ring on that there, but it's not actually that. So I'll figure out where that goes and I'll put it back in its place and make sure it's not damaged first. And then, yeah, we're going to stick it back in and Bob's your uncle. Cool, team. So we're going to put our brand new genuine filter in, and then we're going to put our pan on with the new pan gasket and put the bolts in. Right, folks, so the pan's back in, torque down to 8 Newton meters, starting from the middle 2, outer 2, back 2. Right, we'll just also put our new drain plug in, which we torque down to, if I'm not mistaken, 20 Newton meters, I believe. We'll just put a new little copper washer on it because it doesn't have one, so it's going to leak if we leave it like that. As I say, we need to torque these down. The ground needs to be finished torquing down, and I've just used some electrical cleaner on the transmission connector, so that just slides back in here and pull down on the tab. Right team, so you can see here we've taken that seal off. Annoyingly, there is actually a seal in there, and this actually doesn't need to be silicon, but obviously at some point someone's gone and put just shitty silicon on it, and it's ultimately caused a bit of a leak anyway, and it hasn't fixed the issue. So I'm actually going to see if I've got the seal in my kit for the 113K that I've already bought parts for, but I'm probably picking I don't. So let me check back in a sec, otherwise we're in a bit of a pickle here. Okay team, so clean this up a few days later. So this is our little oil pressure output cover that goes in the little gap down here. You can see it's left a lovely big puddle of oil just over the last 36 hours roughly. So I'm just going to give that a clean up there. You can see where there's a lot of build-up from the stuff dripping out the bottom of it. So I'm just going to get some brake cleaner in there and just clean as much as I can up just so it looks a bit tidier. And I'm also just going to try and get rid of that leftover bit of oil that's sort of stuck in the base there. Just because it looks a little bit like, you obviously don't want the oil getting in the way of the seal when you put it on. But it won't be major. Cool. So here's our new seal. This is the part number here, 112.184.0161. Just got this from StarTech here in New Zealand. They had them sitting there. So it's just a normal rubber seal. Don't go and use silicon. Like I was going to do that, obviously, just to see that before. If you had to wait months, not months, but like weeks for a part, then yeah, okay, maybe give silicon a go. But just buy a new part, chuck it in there, away you go. So we'll clean it up first. We'll put a bit of Vaseline on it, and then we'll install it and put the bolts back in as well. And we'll give the bolts a little quick clean up if they need it. They're not too bad. Yeah, they'll be right. Cool. Or was it these bolts? I actually can't remember now. Yeah, it'll be these ones. Right team, so we've just put the kit back on, so you can just see it down there. Nice and clean. Not spotless clean, but clean enough. Clean for what we're doing here. Gets rid of the oil leak, looks a lot better. So real happy with that. I don't have my torque wrench because it's getting calibrated, so I've just done it hand tight plus 10 degrees roughly. I think you want to torque it down to probably no more than 8 to 10 Newton meters on the aluminium timing case. Cool, so now we're going to put the fan back in and then start filling her up with a bit of transmission fluid. Let's go. So we've got the fan back in and it's not rubbing on the cowling. We've torqued that bolt up there. Now unfortunately on the 210 with the conventional belt driven fan, you'd need the special tools which you can buy online. You don't have to buy genuine ones. One that holds the water pump pulley and then one that turns the actual main nut there, and just do it really good and tight. Because the engine spins counterclockwise, obviously it's very unlikely the fan will come off, but you want to make sure it's still really tight. And then obviously I undid this as well. Make sure you tighten up the coupling so you don't have it blow off when you're driving at some point. Other than that, all good. The fan belt's back on. Just check belt sits in between the pulley guides on each pulley. And yeah, we're good to go. So what we're going to do now, before we lift the car up and finally, I've got to put the electrical connector cover on and put the under trays back in. we're just going to fill it up with some transmission fluid. The only bastard about the 210 naturally aspirated is that the intake box blocks the view of the view of the filler. Well, sort of, yeah. Well, no, it does, yeah. So you've got to get to it there. And because it's I don't really have the proper filling tool for it yet, so I've just sort of got years ago one of these here, which is just one of these with it cut in half, and set it up like that. So I can literally just plumb it in to the hole there to fill it up, so you can see. The only thing I would suggest, if you can, just in case you spill some, just to sort of buffer it there like that. And what we're going to do is chuck probably about 5 litres in. I'll confirm shortly. But we'll just start WIS up. Hopefully it works. Yes. And I'll find out how much fluid we're going to fill up, because I actually don't know. We've drained the torque converter, we've drained the gearbox, we've taken the whole valve body out, we've taken a lot of stuff out. So I'm picking the fluid's going to be pretty empty in the whole system. So it will probably be about 6 litres or so. So yeah, I'm going to do that right now. It's boring, so we'll just do a quick play of it. Team, so we've put 5 litres into the gearbox. There's our 5 there. I've got a spare one. I also have some more if needed, but hopefully, yeah, I'm not sure. Depends. I'm picking we might need more, but basically on WIS here for the 722.6, we refill it with 5 litres. Then we start it up and run the car in P range for a little while, and then switch off the engine again, and then fill it further as needed, which it probably will. You generally measure the gearbox when the engine's running, and you need the specific measuring tool for it. So you can see the cool range there. Now you can see, look, I've got stuff on my dipstick, so make sure you clean it before you put it in there. You don't want shit getting into your transmission oil. Cold range here 25 degrees Celsius, and hot range 80 degrees Celsius. I usually always go for a drive and measure it on the go. You'll see in my other videos with the S600s and stuff, I'll drive them and measure them. But in theory, you can measure them when they're still cold and be done with the job. You know, you don't have to run them fully up to temp. So I might try that method here. But yeah, I think I'm going to need some more fluid. So I'm just going to start it. It's bloody wind. I'm going to start it up, just leave it in idle for a sec, turn it off, measure it to see if we've got any registration of fluid on the dipstick. And if we don't, then I'll chuck another bottle in it and just keep topping it up. And then we'll start it again and run through the gears. So, yeah. She hasn't been started in a while. I've checked the oil. Battery's plugged in again. You're watching this live. Hopefully everything's all good. Welcome back, Murky. Oh, you've been off for a while, haven't you? Been off for a couple of weeks, or maybe a month now. Yeah, the battery's like, there's our brand new genuine hose for our AC. Don't want the AC running. I don't even know if it's going to let me turn it on, to be honest. What are we doing? Put it in park. Let's try and start it. Oh. Get that oil going. Takes a while for that oil to get flowing in. Noisy lifters. Cool. So that's just a little quick run. And then what we'll do, team, is I'll check the fluid again. Oh yeah, now you can see a bit of smoke. You can have smoke burning off your downpipes because I've had a little bit of transmission fluid dip onto them, so don't be concerned. It always worries me. I'm like, if the bloody valve cover's leaking again, but they're not. So cool. Okay, let's keep going. So team, I've found out, for some reason I might be wrong, but I feel like I've scanned this car before already, using DAS, which is the slightly more newer but still old scanning software for Mercedes. I'm supposed to use HHTWIN apparently, which is even older. The versions on HHTWIN, here we go. The versions on HHTWIN, the chassis, if we look at this quickly, it's quite funny. Workshop number. How do I do this again? I can't remember now. Enter. Yeah, 124 is W140s, R170, W202, W210. I guess I go F6 as well. No. So it's funny. It's like some old sort of, not DOS, but maybe it is DOS. I don't know. It's like a little weird mini portable screen. And everything's not in German, but it's all by the module code. So, you know, BAS, the brake assist, and then what's ADS? Don't know what ADS is, but I do know EGS is for the gearbox or for the transmission. So if I go into that, turn the ignition on, it's actually quite a cool tool. Like it's actually very simple, if anything. Dare I say, I like it somewhat more than DAS. It's just easy. Actual values, lock up clutch. Transmission, fluid level indicator. Cool. So it knows the car's in park. We'll turn her on. Just make sure everything's clear. It's not going to jam anything. Yep. Cool. Open up the door. And we're just going to wait till basically this reads 25 degrees Celsius. And we're going to measure the fluid level with the dipstick here. It's been a little bit low. It needs to be in this window here. So we'll measure that shortly. And then we're ready to go for a test drive. Hey team, so we're out on the road. It's been a few days since I've put the E55 back on the road, and I've had the AC system regassed. Didn't lose much. AC refrigerant, which is good. But anyway, car drives great. The new Conductor plate's really nice and smooth. It does make a difference. It does make a difference to the shift quality of the car. Obviously, things like your solenoids and the condition of the clutch packs inside the actual gearbox itself will have more of an effect. But fundamentally, just something as simple as a new Conductor plate can improve the shifting qualities of the car. And it has, especially on downshift. So when I used to go from, say, drive to fourth to third to second to first, sometimes it was quite a shock change in gear, whereas now it's actually pretty smooth. Still not smooth, but better, which is good. So it shows you that can improve the quality of the shift. And again, the Conductor plate in this car is, a 24-year-old part manufactured in 2000. How many of us can go and find something in our house that still works, that was manufactured in 2000, that's electronic, that sits in oil, hot and cold every single day in all those different cycles? It shows you how good the quality of some things are, or used to be, from brands like Bosch and Mercedes. So testament to those electronics. Still worked well, but the new one's good. Anyway, other than that, the car's driving really well. I think the project was a success. So in summary, we've done the rear main seal. We did the input shaft seal, the output shaft seal on the 722.6 5-speed. Very easy, a lot easier than I was expecting it to be. So any future gearbox I ever pull out of a car, if it's bone dry, I'll probably leave it. Well, in saying that, the input shaft I'd probably only change if it was sort of clearly leaking, but the output shaft I'd probably change regardless. It's just peace of mind, I guess. At the end of the day, we're looking at most 722.6s now in 210s. Well, from 140 to 202s to 203s to 210s to 211s. You know, they're all well into their 30s at the oldest point, 20 to 30-year-old range now. So seals like that really should just be done regardless, I guess. So yeah, if you're doing a gearbox job on your 210, just do those input and output seals. You also saw the transmission connector plug itself also was leaking. We found that was leaking, and I did from memory replace that only a couple of years ago. So it shows you how, to be honest, maybe I didn't install it properly, but we've put our new connector in and it seems to be holding up well so far. So that's really good. What else have we done on that job? Yeah, so we did our rear main seal. Again, make sure you put a new rear plate in. Don't just replace the seal, just replace the whole plate. It's easier. You're going to need, unfortunately, to buy a few tools in this job. You are going to need the press tool for the rear main seal. The press tool thankfully fits a lot of bends. It can fit the 112, obviously. It can fit the 113. And it can fit the 137 or 275 V12, which again is rare. Thankfully, it's good for me because I've got one. But yeah, you want to put that in your car. You're going to want to buy that kit and have it on hand as needed. And also, if you're driving a 210, for example, you're likely going to have, I don't know if the facelift changed. I don't know if the 210 facelifts removed it, but obviously we've got the conventional viscous-driven engine-driven viscous cooling fan that we run in these cars. So you have to have that large wrench and holding tool to take that fan off. It's a little harder. I think you need that. You probably can't do it any other way to get that fan off, so you can turn the crankshaft and get the necessary equipment in there to turn the crankshaft while you're disconnecting your drive plate from the torque converter on the 722.6. So the 210 probably needs a few more tools than the 211, just in respect to little things like that. Even if you want to read the ECU or plug it, sorry, not the ECU, but if you want to plug in and read the different modules on the car, you need the 32-pin circular connector rather than the modern OBD2 port connector. So, if you've got a scanner already, you probably won't have that specific adapter. So just things like that to bear in mind with these older cars. But yeah, other than that, it was a fun job. It's not hard. On the 210, it's simpler. We didn't have to remove the exhaust system like we did on the 211. It's pretty straightforward, cut and dry. Good learning if you're new to, if you've just gotten a hoist and you're sort of just diving into some more complex projects. The transmission removal on a 722.6 equipped car like a 210 is pretty straightforward. Anyway, team, feel free to ask any questions. Obviously, anyone else here who's done a gearbox job on a 210 or any Mercedes, feel free to chime in with any further advice or suggestions. Always here to learn. I'm sure everyone else here is as well. So yeah, stay tuned for the videos to come on the 211. This video is a few years old. There'll be plenty more videos you can watch as well on my different cars. So thanks for watching, and like and subscribe if you would like to see more. And see you soon. Cheers.